Hey everyone, this is Joel. Welcome to my official YouTube channel. This is going to be my very first content on this channel. And to those of you who have already subscribed before there's even been a video, I'm so grateful to you. And if you haven't subscribed yet and you just happen to stumble across this video, I hope that my story helps you out. My goal is to share content with you about the recruiting process, the hiring process, everything having to do with pivoting careers, submitting your application, revamping your resume, building your brand, and using tools such as LinkedIn to really help you with your job search. So I thought it prudent to start my very first video by telling you how I got into recruiting. So it's not going to be a comprehensive story of my life, but it's going to encompass the things that I did that led to me now being a recruiter. I'm a corporate recruiter now for compliance roles. I've been a volume recruiter. So I have a lot of experience and lots of different recruiting in a very short period of time. And I really want to share that insight with you. Before we get much further, do me a favor, smash that like button for me. If you haven't yet, click that bell notification so you're alerted when new videos drop. And like I said before, if you haven't subscribed, click that subscribe button for me as I try to grow this community and give you information that is truly valuable to you. So I'm a corporate recruiter now, like I mentioned, so I wanted to share my story with you. Early in 2021, I had an opportunity to become a recruiter after spending almost 6 years working with my then employer. I started at that employer in 2015. I did a few different roles within the company, and I really learned how the organization worked internally. It was a smaller financial institution, still very large. They actually work with a lot of clients that you may recognize. You may actually have some accounts with them. But I had the opportunity to do fraud with them. I had not commit fraud, but I was in their account protection department helping fight fraudsters, which was incredibly fun. I spent some time in one of their corporate escalations teams where I also did social media. There was some time where I also did written off collections accounts. So I got a very strong understanding of banking, credit card banking specifically, the compliance, the regulations, all of the things that are encompassed in a financial institution such as that. So after 6 years there, even though I had been with the company for a long time, I felt like I wasn't being given the opportunity to reach my full potential. It's just what I felt. I tried opening several doors to take my career to new heights, but it always felt like they slammed shut in my face. There were so many things that happened. I could be here all day. I got a lot of opportunities to grow, and in hindsight, I'm very grateful for my time there. But there were interviews that I went for where I didn't get the job, even though I was qualified. There were things that happened that really frustrated me, and I just reached a point where I felt there's more that I can do. I had a passion for marketing. I had grown a presence on YouTube. This is not my first time on YouTube. I actually have a whole different channel on an unrelated topic, but I worked on a lot of different projects outside of work that gave me a very strong skill set when it came to digital marketing, when it came to building communities online and social media. So during a company town hall, somebody actually asked the CEO of the firm, they asked him if there were a culture that you would promote. He was a newer CEO, and they asked him, what culture would you promote here? And he said, I want to promote a culture where people open doors, like they'll create a door where there are none, people who ask questions, people who ask why, people who find better ways of doing things and not just follow the status quo. And I heard all of those things, and it was like a ding, 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 ding. It's always who I've been, always, even though sometimes it felt like my suggestions were put in the suggestion bin, which also doubled as the trash bin. I felt like that a lot of times where I would give suggestions and it just felt like it was maybe above my pay grade, and the guidance I got was, hey, don't worry about it. It's really none of your business. So when I heard that, it really sparked something inside of me and feeling, wow, they're promoting a culture of people who think like me, when often thinking like me, I felt maybe worked against me. And a lot of that had to do with my maturity too. As I grew into being more of a professional, I started my in corporate America in my mid-20s. Now I'm in my mid-30s. So with time, you just learn how to do things better. You learn what not to do, and you gain appreciation for maybe your own flaws, your own faults, and you work on them. So this actually inspired me to reach out to a VP that spoke during that same meeting. Just there was a kindness about her. Something just really stood out that told me, send out an email, introduce yourself, point out that you represent that culture the CEO says he wants in this firm and in this company. So I didn't give up. Even though doors were shutting in my face, I kept going. So I reached out to that VP, and she happened to be the VP of Human Resources. And I let her know my true feelings. I let her know that I felt stagnant, and I felt that I had the potential to do a whole lot more for the company than I was doing. I had been in my role since 2017, and it was 2020. So at that point, I had been doing the role for over 3 years. I felt I knew it like the back of my hand. I was doing social media, taking care of customer inquiries on both Facebook and Twitter. I loved it while I was doing it, but I had just reached a point where I felt like I was no longer gaining any real value outside of just collecting a paycheck, and that's just a bad place to be. So I reached out, and I said some things that were true. I said, my goal is to be in marketing. Here are the skills that I've developed that I think I can bring to the table. And she didn't respond to me right away. And at that time, it was like a shot in the dark for me. Reaching out, I was an hourly worker, barely making, maybe a little over $20 an hour. And I'm reaching out to an executive of this company that I've been at. It was a little nerve-wracking to reach out, selling myself to this individual that really had no reason to invest any time in me versus any other associate. But even though she didn't respond right away, it took a few days for me to get that response. That whole time I was thinking, I messed up. I probably freaked them out. They're probably not going to want to respond. They probably think I'm audacious reaching out in the way that I did. But what ended up happening is it ended up working out in my favor. It wasn't as soon as I thought, but I ended up getting a response in like 3 days. And they said they really appreciated me reaching out. They really appreciated what I had to share. And they asked to set some time on my calendar so that we could meet and that we could discuss my ambitions, my goals, and some of my ideas. So via these conversations, at the time, the company was actually working on a type of apprenticeship program. And I let them know, hey, I've had this idea for a while. I've wished there were pathways that we could go from your call center to more of your corporate roles, but it didn't feel like there was really a pipeline to do that. And, this woman genuinely cared, and she wanted to lower barriers to entry into these corporate roles, especially from that ingrown talent. So they created an apprenticeship program where people from their call centers in different capacities would get to do these corporate roles for 6 months. They would learn the role. They would get practical experience from people who were in the role at that moment. And if it was a mutual fit for both sides, what would happen is you'd get offered a full-time role. And via our discussions, I ended up applying for that program, and I was accepted in that program. And it was a very competitive cohort. There were a ton of applicants. I want to say there were over 200 applicants, and I managed to get one in recruiting because we had a conversation, and she pointed out to me, Joel, I think you're very personable. I think you're very charismatic, and I think you know a lot. And I think you like to see the good in people. I think with all of those factors, I think you'd be a great recruiter. And even though it was welcoming to hear that, it's not what I wanted. The thought of recruiting, being on the phone all day, talking, to job seekers, I didn't really have a strong understanding outside of that of what a recruiter did and it entailed. I really wanted to do marketing. That was what I was hoping to get. But I also knew that opportunities don't always present themselves and doors don't always open. And when a door opens, sometimes you need to act. So I decided I was going to act, and I said, yes, I'm very interested in that opportunity. Even though it's not marketing, it sounds very exciting. And I can also see where there's a lot of aspects of marketing in recruiting. Even though I didn't truly know that at the time, now I do, and it happened to be completely true. But yeah, that's essentially how it ended up working out. That conversation changed the trajectory of my career. After several more meetings, we developed just a strong professional relationship, and that opened the door for me to be a recruiter. And like I told you, it wasn't something I had my heart set on, but now that I'm here, I know it's the perfect role for me, and it has been. So I was able to do the program for 6 months, and I learned so much. I'm actually a Spanish speaker, and I was a bilingual associate for them for a long time. So I managed and thought to myself, I want to bring in high quality bilingual associates to do roles similar to the ones that I had done. I knew what the roles entailed, but I also had a strong understanding, just from my own background, of what a bilingual associate could bring to the table, and to be an advocate and to go seek out the best bilingual talent for our roles. And my very first job rec was for a volume class for bilingual associates, and I managed to get, and I remember at the time them telling me, I brought in more bilingual associates for one recruiting class than anyone had at any point in the company's history as far as the recruiting department. That's the feedback that I was personally given by the head of talent acquisition. So I learned the role, and I also identified, well, I have a lot of experience with social media. I have a lot of experience with digital marketing and creating content. So what's the middle ground for me between being a recruiter and that experience that I have in getting that marketing? And that's when the Venn Diagram came together, and it landed on LinkedIn. That's when I decided I'm going to build a presence on LinkedIn. I'm going to be a content creator on LinkedIn, because building a brand on LinkedIn will allow me to connect with job seekers, which ultimately is my job as a recruiter. And if you're a job seeker, who do you want to connect with? You want to connect with recruiters. And if not recruiters, you want to connect with hiring managers. But more often than not, a recruiter is going to be your pipeline, is going to be your pathway to that hiring manager. So just like I reached out to that VP, who was somebody who had the leverage to open doors for me, connecting with a recruiter and leaving an impression can open doors for you, even if it's not the role you apply for right away. If you leave a strong enough impression on them, it's very realistic that they'll keep you in mind for another role that may come down the line. So after doing that role for about 6 months, I accepted a full-time role as a recruiter, and it was shortly after that I was able to leverage that experience as a volume recruiter, and I landed a role as a compliance recruiter for one of the largest financial institutions in the world. And that's a story that I'll probably save for another day, in all honesty, because it made me who I am today. But a lot of that had to do with LinkedIn. The content I created on LinkedIn, the brand that I started building on LinkedIn, which in all honesty was a fraction of the size it is now. I really took it all out over the last year. But at that time, I maybe had 500 followers, but I was posting content that had to do not only with the job search process, the job seeking process, the hiring process, but a lot of my content had to do with my own personal struggles. It had to do with having doors shut in my face and sharing that. It had to do with dealing with imposter syndrome. It had to do with all of these different things that I know a lot of people in the job search are dealing with. So a recruiter ended up seeing me on LinkedIn and giving me an offer that changed my life. Now I'm a recruiter for an incredibly large financial firm. Again, everything on this channel is representative of me, not my employer. It's me. So this channel is mine. I don't represent them when it comes to this. This is a passion project of mine, because I want to use the platform that I've built to share that with people like you, because I understand what it's like to feel frustrated. I understand what it's like to feel like there's something more meant for you. I know what it feels like to be in a job that you feel is a dead-end job that you're just not satisfied with. And I also now know what it feels to be in a job where you feel actualized and you get to prove to yourself, hey, I was right in feeling that way. All right, so we're going to end this one here. I hope my story inspires you a little bit. I hope it gives you some motivation. because I promise you I'm nothing special. I've dealt with a lot of obstacles in my life. I grew up in extreme poverty. My parents were immigrants from a completely different country. I grew up in a culture that, even though it was technically my own, in many ways felt foreign to me because I was the first one learning it. My parents weren't here. They taught me a lot of things, but a lot of things they taught me may not have been relevant to American culture. So there were lots of struggles that I had to deal with. I'm a college dropout. I didn't even complete my degree because I focused on my career and I focused on my family, and I never got to finish the last few credits to get my bachelor's. So it always felt like I would have all these obstacles that would prevent me from getting where I wanted to go. But the one thing I had audacity, and I had, the ability to take risk and try new things. I had the ability to try podcasts, to create music, to create communities on Facebook, to grow a YouTube channel to thousands of subscribers in a niche that I felt I was good in. I grew an Instagram following to above 5,000 followers. All of these different things that I did ended up compounding and leading me to the position I am today. My path is very untraditional, which is why I think you need to hear voices like mine, because you may have an untraditional path too, and you may need to hear someone like me tell you, hey, if I did it, you can do it too. If you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments. Smash that like button for me. Until next time, this is Joel, the People's Recruiter. Take care.